A historic pact could be on the horizon. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia are reportedly close to a security-related agreement that normalizes Israel-Saudi relations. They recognize each other. The potential deal would amount to a new version of a framework that would be scuttled by the Israeli-Hamas war that was scuttled and could reshape the Middle East. President Trump was on path to doing that. Here to react, Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired four-star General Jack Keane. General, I know on some level many people are surprised they're talking about this. What has to happen first for them to normalize relations?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's just state likely a lot of the reasons for the war in Gaza and for Iran operationalizing, all of their proxies in coordination with what Hamas was doing was to break this deal because it was moving towards a very positive solution. And you're right, it was started by the previous administration, the Abraham Accords. But it is quite remarkable that while the war in Gaza is raging, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is still moving in this direction, initially first with the United States and then eventually with Israel itself. The deal with the United States would be a security arrangement similar to what we have with South Korea, Japan, and the Philippines, help them with civilian nuclear power and some kind of an arms deal. In return, Saudi Arabia would normalize relations with Israel. But that would not take place until the war in Gaza ends, and there would have to be some kind of a pathway toward a Palestinian state. Listen, the Arabs want no part of Hamas. There's no future dealing with Hamas. They are completely focused on what the major threat to the region is, Iran. And that is why they want to normalize relations with Israel. Also, there's an economic benefit to doing all of that. But they do want to see some movement towards a Palestinian state. In the same regard, they want no part of the Palestinian Authority leadership that exists in the West Bank. They believe they're corrupt, they've never accomplished anything, and there has to be some fundamental reform here. So there's two pieces have to fall in place. The U.S., Saudi, which is working towards completion, and then Saudi and Israel with the conditions and the realities I just mentioned.
So we're putting massive pressure on Netanyahu to come up with some type of peace deal. Hamas has been walking away, but now they're considering a peace deal. They want a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire. They want no raid on Rafah, obviously, and they want to allow the Palestinians to return to the north. The Israelis say, yeah, we'll give a pause, a temporary ceasefire, but we're still going into Rafah. How much leverage do we have over Israel to take a deal that's not in their interests?
Well, certainly the administration is pushing Israel in that direction, but they've been pretty steadfast here. Sinwar, who is the leader of Hamas in Gaza, he's calling the shots there. And what he really wants is an end to the war. He has not accepted any proposal since the deal was made back in November with the release of the 40 hostages. And because he believes the wind is at his back. He's got growing international condemnation of Israel. He's got the United States openly disagreeing with Israel's war aims and pushing them to a place they really don't want to be. And that's why he's been delayed. Because what he wants to do is survive with his leaders and survive with enough of the Hamas fighters so he can rebuild his organization. He already thinks in his mind that he's achieved a major strategic victory in terms of the political isolation and condemnation of Israel. So he's playing those cards pretty close to his chest. It's not that he wouldn't make a deal if he thought that the temporary ceasefire could lead to a permanent ceasefire. And there is certainly a lot of pressure on Israel for that. The pressure on Netanyahu certainly is, one, get the hostages released. And you can see that mounting pressure has taken place in Israel. And two, make sure he cleans up the rest of Hamas in Rafah. Those are his two pressure points that he's actually dealing with here. And I don't know what's going to happen here because Sinwar has resisted all of these proposals, since November of last year.
Well,
and we'll see what comes of it. Hopefully there is some kind of temporary ceasefire, Brian, to get as many of these hostages out. Now, the number is a max of 33 because Hamas has told them they don't believe they have any more than 33. They could be lying, obviously, about all of that because they took the hostages right from the beginning for two reasons. One is to protect themselves, the leaders, and two, and use them as leverage to end the war. And I don't think any of that has changed.
And if you leave Sinwar in power and you leave the higher-ups in Hamas in power, we're going to be back here in 18 months. They're going to pull off another attack. And I would hope at some level the administration understands it's in the world's best interest for them to finish the job, even if there is a pause. I think it seems to be obvious, but I think people are too focused on the election. General Jack Keane, always great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, have a great weekend, guys. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.